The chamber of the Galactic Council was a masterpiece of diplomatic architecture, a vast, circular auditorium suspended in the heart of a nebula. Representatives from 1,000 starfaring civilizations sat in their designated biospheres, each a self-contained ecosystem tailored to its occupants' unique biology. The air, or what passed for air in the various sections, hummed with a low murmur of political discourse. Today, the primary agenda item was a minor bureaucratic nuisance, the formal petition for protectorate status from a primitive bickering species from the Orion Spur. They called themselves humans. High Counselor Thrax of the Vorn Empire, a being of immense crystalline structure that floated within a zero-gravity field of shimmering gas, projected his voice, and a series of resonant chimes that the universal translators rendered into a weary, condescending tone. We have before us the final report on Species 847, designation human. Their technological level is rudimentary. They have fractured into over 190 nation-states, many of which are still actively hostile to one another. Their homeworld, Earth, is ecologically damaged, and they have only just achieved the capacity for sustainable interstellar travel with their primitive generation ships and solar sail technology. A holographic display shimmered in the center of the hall, showing looping footage, grainy clips of ancient wars, political rallies, and a test launch of their first crewed FTL probe, which had promptly malfunctioned and collided with their own moon. A soft, derisive tittering ran through the assembly. Representative Zilv of the aquatic Arkush swayed in her water-filled sphere, her tendrils of bioluminescence flickering with amusement. They are violent, inefficient, and possess a dangerous talent for self-deception. Their own historical records are filled with accounts of them believing themselves to be the center of the universe, divinely chosen and uniquely special. It is a textbook case of a species suffering from acute post-sentience narcissism. Granting them protectorate status would be a drain on council resources and a potential source of instability. A chorus of agreement rippled through the hall. The consensus was clear. Humanity was a joke. A particularly loud, messy, and self-important joke. "We have also received their formal application," continued Thrax, his crystals vibrating with amusement. It is written in a language they call English, and it is, shall we say, creatively formatted. They refer to their primary governing body as the United Nations of Earth. They request equal representation and a seat at the table of galactic civilization. The final words were delivered with such dripping sarcasm that even the stoic, rock-like Grathian emitted a low rumble of laughter. "They want a seat at the table?" buzzed a Xylosian, its insectoid mandibles clicking. "They cannot even keep their own atmosphere stable. We should deny the petition and establish a standard observation quarantine. They are centuries, perhaps millennia, from being ready for interstellar society." This was the standard procedure. A primitive species was observed, assessed, and either guided, quarantined, or, in rare cases, offered protection. Humanity was clearly a quarantine case. They were too volatile, too fractured, too human. However, on a small blue-green planet on the fringe of the galaxy, a group of men and women were not aware they were being judged. They were, in fact, in the middle of a crisis. A massive solar flare, the largest in recorded history, had erupted from their sun. It was a coronal mass ejection of unprecedented power, hurtling towards Earth at millions of kilometers per hour. In the deep space monitoring stations, the mood was grim, but not panicked. For decades, a quiet, unpublicized revolution had been taking place. While the world's attention was on the faltering FTL program and the political squabbles, a different kind of science had been advancing in the shadows. It wasn't about exploration, it was about survival. Yet it wasn't about building ships to reach the stars, it was about building weapons to ensure that when the stars reached for them, they would have an answer. The CME was the trigger. As the electromagnetic storm washed over Earth, it didn't just cause auroras and knock out satellites. It interacted with a global network of installations built in the most remote and inhospitable places on the planet: the desert sands of the Sahara, the frozen wastes of Antarctica, the deepest ocean trenches. These weren't research stations or comms relays. They were the nodes of Project Chimera, humanity's last best secret. The storm's energy was immense, chaotic, and perfect. The nodes absorbed it, channeled it, and focused it through quantum-entangled pathways into a single, devastatingly precise pulse. It wasn't aimed at the sun. And it was aimed at a specific point in space, a point identified decades ago by a maverick astrophysicist who had noticed the faint, almost imperceptible energy signature of the Council's observation probes. For centuries, the Galactic Council had watched. For the first time, something watched them back, and it had just pulled the trigger. On the Galactic Council, the vote was about to be called. High Counselor Thrax was preparing his final, dismissive summation. All in favor of classifying Species 847 as a quarantine-level civilization to be observed but not contacted, signify by... He stopped. A new sound filled the chamber. It wasn't a chime, a hum, or a spoken word. It was a deep, resonant, and utterly alien frequency that bypassed the translators and vibrated directly in the crystalline structure of his being. And it was a feeling of immense, focused power. A warning. Every representative felt it. Every bioscanner, every sensor in the vast chamber spiked simultaneously. The central holographic display flickered and died, replaced by a single terrifying image. It was the view from one of their deep space reconnaissance drones, the ones positioned in the dark space between galaxies, watching for threats. The drone's feed showed a pinpoint of light in the Orion spur. The human star. But it wasn't just a star anymore. A torrent of pure, focused energy, a cosmic fire hose of power, was lancing out from the system's third planet. It wasn't a natural phenomenon. It was artificial. It was directed. And it was fast. Unbelievably fast. Before any representative could speak, before any defense grid could be activated, the beam struck. It didn't hit the council chamber itself. It was far more precise than that. It struck the council's primary communications and observation hub, a colossal space station that orbited a dead moon a few light seconds away. The station was the nerve center of the entire galactic community, processing every diplomatic communique, every scientific report, every piece of intelligence. The beam didn't just destroy it, it annihilated it. One moment it was a gleaming monument to 1,000 civilizations working in concert. The next, it was a rapidly expanding cloud of subatomic particles. The light from its destruction hit the council chamber a few seconds later, a silent, horrific flash that illuminated the stunned faces of 1,000 representatives. The stunned silence that followed was absolute. It was a silence so profound, so heavy, and it felt like a physical weight pressing down on the chamber. The condescending tittering was gone. The dismissive murmurs were gone. The only sound was the low hum of the chamber's own life support, suddenly sounding fragile and vulnerable. Then the human signal came through. It wasn't a formal diplomatic address. It wasn't a request for a seat at the table. It was a single, untranslated audio file broadcast on all known frequencies. The universal translators struggled, but they managed to decode the words. They were spoken in English, by a voice that was calm, cold, and utterly without mercy. We are aware of your counsel. We are aware of your observations. We are aware of your judgment. You have monitored our wars, our failures, and our divisions. You have seen our weakness, but you have not seen our strength. And you have not seen what happens when we stop fighting each other and start solving a problem. That station was a demonstration, a single shot, powered by your own star, focused by our will. We have 1,000 more just like it, aimed at 1,000 different points. We do not seek your approval. We do not seek your protection. We only require one thing: your absolute and unconditional silence. Observe us, and we will unmake your observations. Approach us, and we will unmake your approach. Threaten us, and we will unmake your existence. This is not a negotiation. This is a statement of fact. The Sol system is closed. The transmission ended. The silence in the council chamber returned, deeper and more terrifying than before. The joke had spoken, and its punchline was the annihilation of one of their most prized possessions. The primitive, a fractured species, had just demonstrated a level of power, precision, and sheer audacity that no one in the room could comprehend. They hadn't just struck back. They had redefined the terms of engagement. They had shown mercy to none, and left the entire Galactic Council in stunned, fearful silence. The weeks following the Chimera event were a period of unparalleled panic and paranoia within the Galactic Council. Emergency sessions were held in secure, mobile command ships, far from any fixed location. Every civilization scrambled to reevaluate their own defenses, their own intelligence, their own understanding of the galaxy. The quaint primitive species from the backwater system was now the single greatest unknown variable in the universe. High Counselor Thrax, his crystalline form dimmed with a mixture of fear and fury, he addressed a closed-door meeting of the Council's military and scientific leadership. We have analyzed the energy signature from the human weapon. It is not a technology we possess. It is not a technology we have ever encountered. It appears to be a form of directed stellar energy focusing, but on a scale we considered physically impossible. They used their own star as a lasing medium, their planet as a focusing array, and a natural stellar event as a power source. It was elegant and brutally efficient. The assembled leaders were a collection of the galaxy's most brilliant and powerful beings, and they were all at a loss. The Arkush representative, Zilv, her bioluminescence flickering erratically, spoke. Our long-range sensors have detected a significant increase in energy output from the Sol system. They are not hiding. They are powering up. We have identified at least 12 more planetary-scale focusing arrays. They are turning their entire solar system into a weapon. The Xylosian military attaché, its mandibles clicking in a rapid, nervous pattern, added, Our standard military protocols are useless against this. We have no defense against a weapon that can strike from across the galaxy with near-instantaneous precision. We cannot blockade a system that can turn our own ships into slag from 1 billion kilometers away. We cannot invade a planet that can weaponize its own sun. A faction, led by the warlike Grothians, advocated for a preemptive strike. We should mobilize the entire council fleet. Their leader rumbled, his rocky form shifting with barely contained aggression. 1,000 ships, 1 million warriors. We overwhelm them with sheer numbers before they can focus their weapon again. The proposal was met with a wave of terrified dissent. And if they have more than one weapon? A frail elder being from a long-lived race whispered. If they can fire simultaneously, your fleet would be a cloud of dust before it entered the Orion Spur. You cannot overwhelm a power source like a star. You can only pray it does not turn its gaze upon you. While the council debated, fractured and panicked on Earth, life continued. The secret of Project Chimera was still a secret, known only to a few thousand people. To the rest of humanity, the massive solar flare had been a near miss, a spectacular light show that had caused some temporary technological disruption. They had no idea they had just become the most feared species in the galaxy. But the leadership knew. In a secure bunker deep beneath the Atlantic Ocean, the commanders of Project Chimera monitored the Council's frantic communications. They had cracked the Council's primary encryption codes within hours of the first shot. They were listening to every panicked debate, every fearful strategy session, every whispered prayer. "We have their attention," said General Marcus Thorne, the grizzled, white-haired commander of the project. He looked at the holographic display showing the scattered council fleet, the terrified representatives, the frantic military preparations. "They're scared." "Good." Admiral Elena Rossi, the project's chief strategist, nodded. "Fear is a useful tool, but it's temporary. They'll get over it. They'll start planning, scheming, looking for a weakness. We need to make sure they understand that there is no weakness to find. We need to show them that our first shot wasn't a fluke, that it was just the opening move." The next phase of Project Chimera was already underway. It wasn't just about planetary defense anymore. It was about projection of power. Small, automated probes, powered by the same stellar energy technology, were launched from hidden bases on Earth's moon. They were tiny, almost undetectable, and incredibly fast. They spread out from the Sol system like seeds on the solar wind. Their mission was simple: reconnaissance and message delivery. They weren't armed. They didn't need to be. Each one carried a small data core and a simple instruction. They were sent to the homeworlds of the Council's most powerful members: Vorn, Arku, Xylos, Grath. Weeks later, and as the Council was still debating, a Xylosian science vessel on a routine patrol near their homeworld detected a small, unfamiliar object approaching at incredible speed. Before they could intercept it, the object decelerated with impossible precision and came to a halt just outside their planetary defense grid. It was a simple, metallic cylinder, no larger than a Xylosian warrior. Etched onto its surface in 100 different galactic languages was a single message: "For the Council of Xylos, from the United Nations of Earth." The cylinder was brought to the Xylosian High Command with extreme caution. It was scanned, probed, and analyzed for traps. Finding none, they opened it. Inside was a small data core and a single sheet of a strange, flexible material. On the sheet, in perfect Xylosian script, was a personal message. It read, "We have listened to your council's deliberations. We have noted your military attaché's comments about our defenses. We want you to know that we have also noted the location of your primary shipyards, your 5 main military staging worlds, and the 3 planets that serve as the primary agricultural hubs for your species. This information is not a threat. It is a statement of our intelligence capabilities. We know where you live. We know what you eat. We know where you build your ships. We have chosen not to act on this information. We hope you will extend us the same courtesy. The Sol system remains closed. Do not test our resolve." Similar messages, personalized for each recipient, appeared simultaneously in the heart of every major council civilization. The Vorn found theirs embedded in the data stream of their primary governmental network. The Arkush discovered a waterproof cylinder floating in their most important oceanic farming zone. The Grathians found a small probe landed directly on their High King's war moon, having bypassed every one of their vaunted defenses. The message was crystal clear. Humanity wasn't just a powerful unknown entity hiding in their own system. They were everywhere. They were watching. They could reach out and touch any world, any asset at any time. The first strike had been a demonstration of power. This was a demonstration of reach and intelligence. The Galactic Council, already shattered by the first blow, was now completely paralyzed. The stunned silence of the first day had been replaced by a terrified, paranoid silence. No one knew who was being watched. No one knew what the humans would do next. The primitive species had not only struck back without mercy, they had systematically dismantled the very foundations of galactic power and security, leaving the mighty council with nothing but the chilling certainty that they were no longer the judges. They were the judged, and the verdict was still pending.